I mean, in the case of Elton Sterling, he was a child rapist, and yet we're supposed to pretend that he was a good family man. I mean, it's insane.
Now, I see you as a kind of Andrew Breitbart figure. You understand that it's not only about overturning the general narrative with these leftists, but it's about tearing down their icons individually. And you do it through completely legal means. But of course, if you take on these people on an individual basis, that opens you up to dirty tricks, to attacks. But what drives you on to expose these people? I know this is a kind of tactic you use to take them down individually. What motivates you in the final equation to take on these hypocrites as you do?
Well, I'm very anti-fraud, and I feel if I didn't do it, no one else would, which is, I think, the best reason to start a business. You sort of want a de facto monopoly. But I think it's important. I mean, I have the skill sets, and I train people all the time. And people have been, gracious enough to give me money through my website. They've been gracious enough to join my fight. And now it's become their fight. I mean, many of the tactics I have used, now other sites are using, so I can move on to other things. And so what motivates me, I mean, I'm a believer. My view is you shall know the truth and it shall set you free, which is my favorite line of scripture. And so I am very, very serious about ending the three frauds of our time: media, education, and government, and working to make those things work for people rather than for their leaders or for sort of a larger kind of globalist class of rulers. So I'm very insistent on it. And I think journalists, you have a responsibility to the truth. And it's very sad how in recent years nihilists have won out. But fortunately, we've had many victories, such as what's happening to Gawker right now, where it's imploding, and Nick Denton himself, the proprietor of it, may go bankrupt for essentially publishing revenge porn. And so we are turning a corner in some of these larger issues. I mean, Trump has been very effective at undermining the credibility of the media, which of course they've done themselves, but he has been very good about pointing out how dishonest they are.
Okay, final comments, and just direct people to where they can find your content.
Sure. I'm very grateful to Alex Jones. I think he paved the way on a lot of these issues. It's been interesting watching in real time how events have vindicated a lot of what he's said over the years. And people want to join me, they can come over to gotnews.com. They can email me at editor@gotnews.com. They want to give me money, it's gotnews.com/donate, and I will be a careful steward with it and just put the money back into the website and back into the research.
Okay, thanks for joining us. There goes Chuck Johnson of gotnews.com. We'll be sure to get him back on the broadcast. Final few minutes here in this segment of the Alex Jones Show. Of course, we're covering what's happening in Munich, Germany. We're getting information that this could be some kind of right-wing nationalist. Again, this is unconfirmed. As I said, these people could be radicalized too. You've got it happening on both sides of the equation. A report that the shooter is being described by Bild, which is a major German publication, as right-wing, shouted, quote, effing migrants as he shot people in these several different locations. They're talking about 3 shooters with rifles. Again, this massive police search, this panic going on in Munich, Germany. But you just watch the left. If this is true, they're rubbing their hands together right now to exploit this narrative. Again, all conservatives will be to blame for this shooting if it turns out to be some right-wing lunatic. But of course, not all Muslims are to blame when it's a Muslim carrying out the shooting. Again, they're complete hypocrites. They never apply their phony logic to both sides of the equation. But again, that remains to be seen. The BBC reports a hunt is underway in the German city of Munich after at least one shooter opened fire at a shopping centre. Several people believed to be dead. And again, at the moment, no culprit has been arrested. The identity of the culprit remains unknown. But again, reports apparently being carried by Bild. We can't confirm this yet, but it looks like they may attempt to blame this on a German. I'm getting a message right now from Alexander Benesch, who is in Germany. He's a journalist. He's been on the show before. He says that witnesses described the shooter yelling, quote, "I am a German." Well, isn't that convenient that he would make it that explicit while he was carrying out the attack? Not to say that it's a false flag, but it seems incredibly convenient that he would make it that clear. But again, this whole migrant policy has radicalized people on both sides. it would be no surprise if this turned somebody who was already on the edge mentally over the edge and led them to carry out this massacre, which has unfolded in Munich, but they're talking about multiple shooters. So it remains to be seen the truth behind that. Let's cover a couple more news stories here. Again, going back to Twitter, who of course censored Milo Yiannopoulos a few days ago now. Well, WikiLeaks came out yesterday. This was up on Infowars.com. WikiLeaks goes head-to-head with Twitter CEO over Milo ban. WikiLeaks went head-to-head with Jack Dorsey Thursday over the ban of gay libertarian journalist Milo Yiannopoulos. And again, this is can hardly be described as a right-wing bigoted group, can it? WikiLeaks. Listen to what WikiLeaks tweeted. Quote, cyber feudalism, Twitter founder Jack banned conservative gay libertarian Nero for speaking the wrong way to actress Leslie Jones. And again, this is the point. He was banned for inciting targeted harassment against Leslie Jones. Yet Leslie Jones herself did that precise thing on more than one occasion. Even at the height of the spat with Milo, she tweeted to her followers in reference to another Twitter user, quote, get her. Get her. How is that not inciting targeted abuse of another Twitter user? So by Twitter's own rules, their own standards, Leslie Jones violated their policy, engaged in incitement for targeted harassment. She should be banned. She went on a talk show and said that she retweets people, so all that all her followers then dogpile and harass this user. She's admitted to it on multiple occasions, yet Milo's gone. And Twitter tweeted its support with a hashtag #LoveForLeslie. This is the incredibly hypocritical double standard of the left. We'll be back with the Alex Jones Show. Final segment, Infowars.com. Stay tuned. Final segment of the Alex Jones Show as what appears to be some kind of terror attack unfolds live on the streets of Munich. Unfortunately, this is happening again. CNN reports a police operation is underway after gunfire erupted at a shopping centre in Munich. CNN affiliate NTV reports several are dead and others are wounded. Authorities shut down public transportation and warned people to stay at home or seek protection. Now they're talking about one shooter, at least one shooter being on the loose, or several shooters. Again, earlier we had reports about 3 shooters. And BBC, apparently, a few people are claiming on Twitter, this is not on the official BBC website, is reporting the gunman was heard shouting, "I am a German." Now, of course, if they play this narrative that it's some right-wing nationalist upset at the large numbers of migrants flooding into Germany, you can bet they will exploit this for all it's worth. Now, because what if one crazy person goes over the edge and commits a mass shooting, does that mean that all conservatives, that all, quote, right-wingers who oppose mass, uncontrolled immigration are also radical, violent extremists? No. Just as all Muslims aren't terrorists when Islamists carry out similar attacks. But the left won't allow that narrative to get out there. They will use this to demonize absolutely everybody. Again, state of emergency now in Munich. They're talking about several shooters possibly. Early reports said 10 to 15 dead. They're now saying 6 dead. We'll wait to see what transpires. Back to Twitter censorship, though, here in the final few minutes. Leslie Jones appeared on a talk show in which she admitted that she carried out or incited targeted harassment of Twitter users, the exact same thing Nero or Milo was banned for. Here's the clip.
And I blow you up, too. So if you tweet me thinking that I'm the only one that's going to get it, I retweet it so all my followers can see it and get on your punk.
So there she is, admitting that she retweets people who criticize her so that her followers will then harass those people. If that's not inciting targeted harassment, then I don't know what is. She also tweeted to another person, quote, "Get her," encouraging her followers to go and harass that person. This is the same thing that Milo has been banned for. And of course, you can bet your bottom dollar that if they were banning leftist Twitter accounts, Black Lives Matter accounts, those people wouldn't be making the argument that Twitter is a private company and can do what it likes. Even as Twitter openly says that it considers itself a public utility and again is now working with governments to hunt down thought criminals who criticize mass migration. There's another article here I wanted to mention in the final minute. New reparations website asks whites to pay black people's rent to relieve their guilt. Yeah, this is not The Onion. I looked at this article for a good couple of hours before deciding whether to publish it, but it's true. There's a website encouraging white people to relieve their white guilt, the burden of white guilt, the burden of the fact that 1.4% of white people at the height of slavery 150 years ago owned slaves. That now that means those people who had nothing whatsoever to do with slavery must give money to black people. Just give them money. Just pay their rent. Just give them a car. Again, feeding into this Marxist critical theory rhetoric that the West is evil, that we've got white privilege, that we need to bow down and apologize for it on a daily basis. Absolutely ridiculous story. Go and check that out at Infowars.com. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of The Alex Jones Show. Again, we'll be covering the breaking news about the Munich terror attack at Infowars.com, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Infowars Nightly News coming up later tonight. Alex will be back with all the takeaway from the RNC on the Sunday show and back, of course, Monday on the radio show. I've been Paul Joseph Watson. Breaking news at Infowars.com. That's the show. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the fourth hour of this Friday edition, July 22nd, 2016 of the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to be taking a look as we move forward to next week's convention, the Democrat National Convention, and I'll be there in Philadelphia. We're going to take a look at some of the stuff that is already broken about that. Of course, we're going to hear probably this weekend who Hillary Clinton has picked for vice president. But I think there's a couple of important issues that have come up, and we're going to talk about those. One of them is Glass-Steagall. You know, people are always looking to see how they can break off people from one party to the other. I think this is a major wedge that Trump can use to pull people in from the Democrat Party, because this was an issue that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, that many of the left wanted. They were very upset about the fact that Bill Clinton removed Glass-Steagall. And that's only part of the story. We're going to tell you the whole story of what the Clintons did in the 1990s that led directly to the massive bank bubble and the meltdown that we experienced, and how we all know they're intricately involved with big banks. But I want to go back and talk about how these banks became too big to fail under Bill Clinton. Glass-Steagall is an important part of that. And it is something that everybody is scratching their head and saying, well, that's real unusual for the Republicans to do that. It's something that Donald Trump had talked about, and his chief advisor, Carl Icahn, had talked about, something that needed to be done. So we're going to tell you what that's about. We're going to tell you how Clinton really did break the glass ceiling. But it was the glass ceiling for banks, not for women, okay? That's what's going on. We're also going to take a look at some of the things that have come out of the RNC convention. One of the key things was yesterday the back and forth about NATO and our commitment to NATO. There was a major interview with Donald Trump in the New York Times. He talked about NATO and his view of it. We're going to give you his comments on that, as well as Nigel Farage. We're going to give you updates as they break on the shooting in Munich. I think it's very interesting. News came out today that the attack in Nice, the one with the guy driving the truck, driving over about 100 people, driving for about a minute and a half at least, because he went for over a mile before he encountered anybody with any guns. Well, we find out now that he had accomplices. And they say he had 5 accomplices. I think it's kind of interesting because, you know, whenever this stuff happens in the United States, we're always told that it's a lone shooter. They never have any accomplices here in the United States. Yet they're looking for multiple people today in Munich. They admit that there were multiple accomplices in France, and it was pretty obvious. There were text messages to other people. There was money that was being exchanged, a massive amount of money that was wired back to his relatives in Tunisia. Just before he carried out this attack, there was also a message saying, I've got the equipment and so forth and so on. If that had happened in the United States, it would have just been ignored, or it would have been explained away. And if you would have questioned it, you would have been called a conspiracy theorist. And of course, if you point out that they're going to find these guys that did the shooting in Munich, that you're going to find out that their names are, guess what? Mohammed, or maybe Ali.